Okay, welcome back to the Daily Counter News Podcast. Like I said last week, is today's show is going to be different. We're actually going to be not talking about any stories off the bat. We're going to let you guys call in and talk about what you guys want to talk about, what news you guys want to hear from us. The phone number you can call us at is 803-497-8124. Again, that's 803-497-8124. Now remember, that phone is dedicated 24 hours to this podcast, to the Daily Counter News. So at any point in time you guys feel you need to reach out to us, that's the phone number to call us on. Is 24 hours. Somebody's always available to pick it up. But what we're hoping to do today is hear back from our audience, our subscribers, our listeners, and get input from you guys on the articles we've run. What would you guys like to hear us run? What would you guys feel would be more comfortable with? Now, the only thing about... Sorry, I got to get adjusted here. The only thing that we can't run every story that everybody contacts us on. And believe us, we get contacted quite a bit by hundreds of parents, hundreds of people around South Carolina on stories that we just don't have the ability to run on due to manpower, hours, and sometimes the intensity of these things are more like vindicating small things, like, you know, the neighbor dog bit my other dog and stuff like. We can't run with those stories. What we focus on are immediate life affecting stories in the state of South Carolina currently. Like the abortion bill that's up by Cromer, by Senator Cromer. Now, currently, at the age of 18, if you're adopted, you can apply for your records and find out your biological birth parents, as long as they've given permission for this. Which, again, is a matter of changing that law. If you're adopted and you're 18, you want to find out who your parents are for medical reasons or for just state of mind reasons, we think that you should be able to do this. It wasn't your choice and all this stuff to be given up and be adopted, so you should have some say-so in there. But the Senator Cromer's bill would move this age from 18 to the age of 70. So you wouldn't be able to access any records, your birth certificate, at the age of 70, which at that point makes this kind of a mute subject. It's kind of a what's the point type deal. So we're hoping to hear from you guys today, and just on some of the stories, you know, Ashley Kidwell, the family courts, the political climate in South Carolina right now. We do know that right now a lot of people are watching the Table Rock forest fire, which we're not covering. There's not a whole lot to cover on that. In our aspect is the fact that there is a large fire. People have been evacuated. We would focus more on how this fire started. You know, how did it come about? Why has it been taking to this degree, to the extent of the fire that it has? You know, why it hasn't been dealt with when it first started? We do understand that firefighters and first responders have a large responsibility when it comes to these matters, and that there's a lot of red tape in there for them. But while we're waiting for hopefully somebody to call in, I'm going to kind of give you guys a rundown on the Daily Counter News. Uh, you know, we started this 7 years ago, and we started it basically because we saw that mainstream media was becoming more of an opinionated news broadcast, and we're not isolating anyone out. You know, there are some great news broadcasters out there, but when political opinions are put on news shows, then it becomes a little bit of an issue. Fear mongering type aspects. You know, when COVID hit, we noticed that every broadcast out there to inform people to wear masks, be 6 feet apart, that these were not just stating guidelines put out by the state, but they were kind of the verbiage was being used to fearmonger in these aspects. So we said that it's time that we started doing a broadcast, a news output that strictly dealt with the facts of a story. That's it. It's not our, like I said before, it's not our duty to make you feel, you have to lean one way or the other. Our job is to tell you the facts of a story, and you make your own opinions of it. We cover family courts because nobody else does. Uh, these are very controversial courts. These are very high-profile courts many times. The only time the average individual hears about what's going on in family court is when it's a high-profile case like Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie or something like that, where we bring it down to a more local aspect, to a more personal aspect. We focus on the violations that these courts frequently enforce, civil rights violations that aren't there, for children's rights, that they have no say-so in a lot of these cases, or what happens to them, so forth. We don't do the he said, she said aspect. So it becomes a very trivial aspect when you get down to certain points of family courts. Yeah, I'm just gonna, every once in a while, last week we were talking about the state budget, and people have a misunderstanding that they don't have access to this sort of documentation. It's online. It's required to be online for public review. And if you have questions about a certain portion of the budget, you actually can contact your representative or your senator and ask them, hey, I have a question. Why is this much money going out? And it's tax money. It's your tax money that's being used for this stuff. So these are things that we kind of focus on. The news that most other places won't do. Why do we push certain stories? Because we think they need to be. We think they need to be heard, for people to understand that these sort of things do happen. And it's not a simple conversation that you can have with somebody over a certain point, when we started the Ashley Kidwell stories, like I said, we were wanting to show how a victim of domestic trauma could overcome it. But when we noticed that she was getting sidelined and blocked by a system that was supposed to be there to help her, and now that they've kind of left her just kind of blowing in the wind, her children blowing in the wind, and the downfall that she has taken, it has become a very different story than what we originally wanted to show. But we follow it and we stick with it because it's heartbreaking. This sort of stuff is very heartbreaking, not just for Ashley Kidwell, but for her kids, for people who actually care about her, to see her in the state that she's become. And more than likely, somebody that this has happened to or is happening to. So they're not alone. It's not a single story out there. We keep getting emails every once in a while asking us about Ashley and the individuals that she associates with. Unfortunately, if we were to just stick with that one aspect of it, we would never be able to put anything out there that would be viable and provable. It just becomes a he said, she said aspect to it at that point. Unfortunately, Ashley has an ability to pretend so well because she's dealt with it for so long. This is her go-to, is to make up in her head these fantasies about things. But she's not the only one that this happens to. It affects other people as well. So, we do get kind of questioned as to how do we come up with these stories. Well, We come up with them very simply by paying attention, questioning everything. One rule as a journalist that you have to have is you question everything that's out there. You know, we're hoping to expand the next few months to other stories, other aspects, other states. We've been fortunate enough to make a lot of good connections in the state of South Carolina. We're hoping that those connections will lead us to other states, Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, uh, and start reporting on those. We're not fully sure how those stories will render into our sites yet. We may wind up creating clone sites for those states and doing it that way. Um, the other aspect is one of the biggest questions we got asked in the beginning when we started this was, how do we pay for everything? How do we don't get paid? We at the Daily Counter do not get paid. We are strictly out of pocket or donation based. If you enjoy our stories that we put out there, our articles, we hope that in some way you contact us and say, hey, I want to donate, I want to subscribe. Unlike other papers like the state's website or other news affiliates, we don't charge for our subscriptions. If you want to subscribe, go for it. It's free. You have access to all our stories. You'll be updated when a new article gets put out. One of the things that we deal with currently is we're focusing more on the child predator aspects in South Carolina, to where this is a serious matter where the state of South Carolina knows it's happening, but is limiting the aspect. I mean, just recently we put out an article where a male individual was sentenced to 14 years for child predator acts, and 14 years is a drop in the bucket. These children that have to deal with this for the rest of their lives. So you got to question the sanity of it all. Excuse me. So you got to kind of question things. But those are the aspects that we deal with in these articles and stuff. Um, Funny thing is that we never planned on growing as quickly as we did and getting so in depth in some of these articles. Uh, Ashley's story is still something we hold very close to our hearts because we've come to care about her in a very deep fashion, because the potential for her to recover from the damage that was done to her was so prevalent, and then to see it pulled out from under her, let alone by her own mother, it was something that we didn't expect. And we expected, hey, her family's going to be behind her on this. And it was the exact opposite. So it kind of shocked us. I don't know how to explain those sort of stories really, because they take on a personal effect. We have the professionalism and actually caring about the people we write about. So it becomes that gray area sometimes. But the one thing we always ensure is every article we put out is fact-based, verifiable by people who might question, hey, where can we look this up? What can we find on it? If we can't find it and give it to you, or if we can't give you the information from our archives, from our catalogs, then we'll tell you where to find it yourself. We want our readers and our subscribers to think for themselves, which is very rare in news media. We want them to be able to form their own opinions on matters. We want them to be able to understand, hey, this is what's going on in the case. This is what's going on politically in the state of South Carolina. You know, we constantly work around the clock doing scanning of legislative bills that are in there. Who's voting for what bill? Who's posting what bill? Who's sponsoring what bill? So you guys are aware of these sort of things. If we see something that raises a red flag in our brains, then we say, hey, if we're questioning it, there might be other people out there that might need to know this information so they can question it as well. You know, it's a 24-hour job, 7 days a week, but we also enjoy it because when we are able to put a story out there and it changes things for people, it makes them better, then we're happy because we were able to facilitate that in some way. Like I said, one of the first stories we did when we first created the Daly County News was a story out of Florida that we just happened to get handed to investigate, and luckily the judge in that case read the article, verified the facts in the article himself, and the mother got custody of their child, which was a good thing, you know. It's difficult to, you know, nobody's right or wrong in a lot of these aspects when it comes to that sort of stuff, but limitations have been put, and they can't be there. You know, we're not there to tell you the sky is blue. Everybody knows the sky is blue. You know. So I think last week I said we're going to stay on for an hour, but I'm not going to do an hour because I have some other stuff I got to do. A couple of articles I got to review and get posted. But like I said, you know, this is what we do for a living. There will be more stories on Ashley Kidwell. Unfortunately, they take their own route. We don't try to navigate that. We just tell it as it is. We hope they start taking a story a turn for the better. We hope that her and the person that she was linked with in the beginning when she first left have a happy ending. We hope she's able to cut that chaotic tie with her mom. We hope she regains custody of her children. It's stories like that just boggle the mind. You would think, how is this even happening in today's society? But sadly it does. So I'm going to give it another minute, and I'm going to read the phone number off one more time. It's 803-497-8124. If we've kind of made a decision, we're going to do this for another month, so probably by the end of April, if we haven't gotten viewers to perhaps call in and join the show, then we may change format, or we may end this completely, which we're leaning more towards maybe changing the format a little bit. We'll pick an article out and go into more detail in it on the show. But that's kind of how we're seeing this going. So we're hoping people participate in this. We wanted your guys' opinion. We wanted to hear your guys' take on everything. And a lot of people have commented on my coffee cup. It does say you had me at Wolf. Which is reminiscent of my German Shepherd that passed away. So that's where we're going to end the show today. We hope you guys have a good week. You know, happy Easter to those out there. Just be careful.